This is Risa Polanski reporting for Miami Today. Jerry Libbin, new president and CEO of the Miami Beach Chamber of Commerce, is also a city commissioner. He says he sees the roles as symbiotic. Both involve serving the community, says Mr. Libbin, who has a background in social work. He sees a long-awaited convention center revamp and the soon-to-begin construction of a tunnel to the Port of Miami as two of the biggest issues facing the residents and businesses on Miami Beach today. He joins us for this week's profile.
I think the strength is clearly the image and the brand of Miami Beach and South Beach. I think the challenge, and we are at a delicate point right now, the challenge is improving the brand and not running down some of that image, which I believe today, and we just had a major issue that I put on the agenda of the commission last meeting, and that is the lack of enforcement is hurting our brand and hurting our image. The fact that the city heretofore has not really regulated and enforced the quality of life issues such as littering, such as noise, short-term rentals, dogs off leash, picking up after your dogs. These are all things that we spend innumerable hours in committees and a commission discussing and vetting and then passing legislation, and yet there's no enforcement. And I think we've seen a deterioration of the quality of life. The residents are very upset. Something that I've worked on for several years, going back to my first election, where I talked about having cleaner streets and safer beaches, and yet we can't seem to get, up until now, any enforcement on a regular basis. And that hurts the branding and the image. When you get a video posted on YouTube that shows filthy beaches, and that goes around the world, it's not going to be something that's going to enhance the image of our city, and it's going to hurt tourism. So that, I think, is the challenge that we have to try to overcome. I believe that the residents and tourists alike will appreciate the enforcement, will not, as some previous commissions perhaps were concerned, and even some business members in the community were concerned, oh my gosh, you'll chase away the tourists, you'll hurt tourism, God forbid, if you give a ticket to someone for littering or for bringing alcohol onto the beach, which is not permitted. But if you go out there on any day, you've got underage drinking, you've got bottles on the beach, they're all over the place, and there has been absolutely no enforcement. It's actually quite the contrary. When we have the cleanest and most beautiful beaches in the world, you will attract the type of tourists that you want. You'll multiply the tourist factor, I think, when people will say, oh, we've got to go see that. That's the most incredible. I think it wasn't that long ago, I remember that we were voted one of the top 10 beaches in the world. And I want to make sure that we strengthen that and that we move up. Maybe we become #1. I don't remember where we were before. I know it was in the top 10. And so that's, I think, our greatest challenge. Our beaches, by the way, in the morning, if you go out there, are amazing. The county does a terrific job with the grooming and whatnot first thing in the morning. So by the time you go out on the beach at 9 or 10, they're amazing. And that's a change. That's only happened, through a lot of coordination over the past year or so. But what happens throughout the day is that there is that lack of enforcement and a laissez-faire attitude that it doesn't matter. Things that you wouldn't do in your own home, just throwing things, on the sand and leaving them there. By the end of the day, it's, really not a pleasant sight. And so I think a little bit of enforcement will go a long way. I'm certainly not suggesting that we need to be out there, giving citations and, left and right to everybody. But I would use this analogy that if the police never had a radar trap, you know what that would mean, right? If there was never a radar trap and no one feared getting a speeding ticket, it would be off to the races, literally. And people would be zooming up and down the streets. It would not be safe. But because there is periodic enforcement, you never know when there's going to be a radar trap. Hopefully most people are respectful and they follow the law, and that's what we need. We need all of our quality of life laws enforced on a periodic basis, so that I suggested at the last commission meeting, we have an open container law. I suggested we ought to educate the owners of the bars and the cafes to not let their customers request and walk out of the restaurant or cafe with a liquor to-go cup. A, it's a violation of our law to have open containers. B, it only puts rowdy people out on the street who ultimately are more likely than not potential litterers with that cup, especially if they walk and take it out onto the beach. So, you know, and I believe responsible owners will jump on that, and I'm going to be pushing to have the administration, you know, support that and go out and educate and then issue some citations to people if they don't get it.